I'm Jake.
I'm Tom.
And we are VIMTV, Velocities in Music, the best kept secret in music reviews. Today, we're going to review a new album, the third album, from a band called Foals, entitled Holy Fire. Now, I've heard a lot about Foals, never really listened to them before, and it seems like the thing that is kind of my thing. I like bands like Radiohead and British bands that do, cool rock music with a lot of guitar, and that's what Foals is. And this album, to me, that when I put it on the first time, the first thing, this album starts off with Prelude and then Inhaler, and those two songs, Prelude sets up Inhaler, obviously, but Inhaler's a pretty big track. They're not afraid to rock out, but this is definitely British rock and roll, and it almost borderlines on arena rock.
A lot of the sounds reminded me of Doves.
I completely agree. Doves,
I roll with that.
You can tell that there's a ton of influence from bands like Radiohead, but specifically U2. I feel like this is just drenched in U2 influence. Lots of reverbed guitar, very, very loud sounding guitar, very full sound.
Lots of kind of funk guitar, though, that focuses more on rhythm, which I would say The Edge does a lot.
Yeah, and I feel like that's almost a testament to their drummer. I feel like the drumming throughout this album is very strong, but usually on most of these songs you have drums and then a few layers of guitars, some bass that's not too complicated yet does its job, which is very, very common with bands that we're describing from the UK. And I just feel like that's kind of an overview of the sound. Now, as far as how they structured the album and your thoughts on it, Tom, what were you thinking with this one?
Well, with this one, it kind of caught me off guard because, this is one that I'd been hearing a lot about. And
people are loving this.
Yeah, after the first couple tracks, Prelude and Inhaler, I was blown away. On first listen, I loved those two tracks. I was like, oh my gosh, this just sets up to be so balls out rockin'. I tell you, Inhaler is probably going to be one of my favorite tracks of the year. I just think that it's a phenomenally good rock song. It even incorporates some when it really rocks out in that chorus there. Kind of reminds me of Muse a little bit. I would even put some battles in there with it as far as the kind of math prog sound. But then after that, I gotta say I was a little disappointed with the rest of it because I felt like they played all their strong cards right away.
Yep.
And not that the rest of the album is bad. I still enjoyed it, but just nothing really jumped out at me. I feel like it kind of peaked early. And then it sounds sharp. It was produced by Flood and Alan Moulder, who are longtime Nine Inch Nails collaborators and producers. So you get that very bright, very sharp sheen of a rock sound, yet it's still able to be very thick. Yep. So I think the production is very good.
Yeah, I think so too.
But I almost think it overshadows the songwriting because I feel like I was paying more attention to just how pleasing everything sounded, and I didn't feel like there was really much good songwriting or melody to dig at.
I feel like this is way more about the sound rather than the songwriting.
Yeah.
Those are two very different things because there's been a huge amount of electronic music that's come out recently, and electronic music right now is focusing way more into the sound, the environment that they're creating, the atmosphere, and that's very important in music. In fact, it's something that I value a lot. But the thing is songwriting is the foundation of your music. If you can't write an interesting song and stick interesting ideas into your songs, their value goes down over time with each successive listen. But the way music's being written right now, it doesn't really lend itself to that. You have to have a good sound because then you catch people's ear right away and then they listen to it and like you and then they spread the word. So it's just kind of a unfortunate marketing tactic. Now, in my opinion, this focuses a lot on their sound and not enough on the songwriting, because I feel like, as you said, they played their ace of trump a little bit early in the album, but then you have tracks like 3 through 7 I kind of feel like are all very similar tracks. They all are similarly structured, they follow similar chord progressions, they use similar notes throughout. It produced the same. A lot of the songs sound the same. They're all very good songs when you actually nitpick them apart, but I still feel like they're a little bit lacking. Now, I will say that track 8, Milk and Black Spiders, is going to be one of my favorite songs of the year. I really like that. I felt that they did a really good job just adding an emotional layer, because one of my big issues with this album is they hit you with Inhaler, which is loud and fun and stuff like that, but then the rest of the songs, that's Inhaler is nothing like anything else on this album.
And that was the frustrating thing for me is and it's not as much that they set up an expectation, it's more just that it doesn't fit. And what's frustrating, it's frustrating when songs on albums don't fit in any way, because you come across
even
them
when they're the best song.
Yeah, and that's what I was going to say. It's almost more frustrating when they're the best song, because then you want the rest of the album to sound like that, and it doesn't follow through with it. Especially going right into track 3, My Number, which I think by itself is a pretty decent song. It reminded me a little bit of Minus the Bear even. But it just had this upbeat funk vibe. And after coming out of the dark, in-your-face rock of Inhaler, I was like, what just happened?
Yeah.
But they never revisit that sound that they established in the first couple tracks, and so for me, it just makes the whole album feel a little bit off. Now, I think the last couple tracks, Stepson and Moon, do a good job of softening it up and giving it a little bit more emotional appeal. But once again, it's still a completely different sound, and there's still that sag in the middle.
Yep, and I think that sag in the middle, I think that those songs, had they broken those up, mixed them around a little bit more, just played with the album flow a little bit better, they could have still used those songs. The thing about that I noticed is, like, I really like the vocal presentation. I feel like this guy has a very interesting voice. It adds a lot of emotional depth, and many of these tracks, his voice is very emotive. However, the thing about emotion, and especially on an album like this where you kick off, Inhaler is such a rock track, it has an edge to it, and almost whenever you have like a rock track that's just straightforward and very and kind of attacking you, it's more towards anger and not something that's more austere or morose or something like that. They're definitely more in a contemplative, austere state in every other track here. They never establish the warrant for that mood ever until you get to Milk and Black Spiders, and then that song, Providence, and Stepson seem to really have that. And I feel like if they would have just pushed those songs forward a little bit, redone some of the album, this album would have flowed a lot better. But right now, it just doesn't. And while I think that it's really well composed, the focus is way too much on the sound and not the songwriting. If they were going to do this sort of format with the album, they should have either A, structured it better, or B, written the songs so that they establish a warrant that makes you care and on an emotional level, so that you're attaching to it not only, from the standpoint of your brain, but also from the standpoint of your heart, as trite as that sounds.
And that's what I'm always looking for in music, period. Doesn't matter what kind, I need intellectual appeal and I need emotional appeal. That's what I'm looking for. I'm looking for something that's going to be engaging on both of those levels, and sometimes I'll find music that does that for me on one level and not the other, whichever combination, but really I'm looking for that good culmination of those two aspects. And here there's definitely some things that really make me think, but I find that it's more in the sound itself, not the songwriting, and I don't get that emotional appeal.
And had they done these things, had they established that emotional appeal and maybe had a better flowing album, I think this would have been a mid-'80s release for me. But still, those are some major issues with this album that knocked it down. Overall, though, the instrumentation is very good. I really like the sound.
The performances are great,
And a lot of these tracks are very good tracks. So overall, I still think this is a pretty solid album. It's just, its faults are going to keep it out of that. It's going to keep me from falling in love with this album. I still think it's worth a good few listens.
Definitely.
I'm going 70 on this one.
I'm going 69.
Oh, you had to go one lower than me.
It'll
round up. It'll round up.
All right, my score doesn't matter anyways.
Yours everything's made up and the points don't matter. Right? What matters is what we kind of, our takeaway was from the words that we say, and that's why it's very important for you guys to know that whether or not we like an album or not, it's very important that you guys just like the music you want to like and you find yourself liking. Just what we advocate is just trying to figure out why you like it and then talking about it, because that's how you get into new music, and that's really what this is all about. So please do us a favor, leave us a comment at www.velocitiesandmusic.com or youtube.com/velocitiesandmusic. Also, let us know what you're into from 2013. We're looking for you guys for advice as to what you want to see us review, and we do that on Facebook and Twitter, so find us there and connect with us. I'm Jake.
I'm Tom.
And we are VIMTV, moving music critique forward.